All right, and welcome back to Morning Express. And it's time for us now to have we're into the home stretch of Morning Express at this time. And we want to talk about peace. And joining us in studio is Major retired Mwithi Peter, who basically is one who has been involved in missions to do with peace. And of course, as we only have 77 days to go, the much anticipated August 8th election will be without a doubt a hotly contested one. Fears have been lingering on the political intolerance could flare up, but is peace not elusive either? In studio, we are joined by Peace Ambassador, retired Major Peter Mwithi, to have that conversation. Thank you for joining us this morning. And maybe just from your experience, sir, do you think Kenya is at a place where we need to be discussing peace with concern?
Okay, I think, Tonga, let me first thank the KTN for inviting me to share a word of peace, which is very crucial in this country. And back to your question is, there's no other time that this country needs peace. It is now, as we are approaching the electioneering period, with reference to what happened in 2007. Mm-hmm.
Right, I mean, you've trained as a peacemaker in your several years in service. How many years have you been in service?
I've been in service roughly for 34 years.
34 years.
Yeah.
And of course, you've seen the political landscape in the country as it's been happening. There's a lot of political intolerance being witnessed right now. How can we tame that to ensure that Kenyans are all on the same track, focusing on peace during and after the elections?
I think the first thing, let me thank the media personnel, wherever they are. Mm-hmm. The only thing we should do is educate our electorate. Who are Wananchi, the Wanjiku back there?
Right.
The Wanjiku has no problem. And I continue insisting that Wanjiku has no problem when it comes to peace. And I'm talking about peace in the definition of peace without violence. Mm-hmm. Because there are so many definitions of peace. And Wanjiku has no problem at all. The problem here, and everybody will agree with me, and I want to put it very clearly to my fellow Kenyans out there, without contradiction, is our few political leaders up there. They incite people during this time for their own political interests, and that is very, very dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as much as you say that Wanjiku has no problem, normally it's Wanjiku that goes out there and does the physical fighting. So how does she get involved in this physical fight? Because when we sit here, you and I, rare is the time that would literally, get into a fight. But when the political temperatures raise, then Wanjiku goes to the streets.
You see, Mike, our Kenyan people, and I said by defining the word peace without violence, okay, we cannot allude that there is peace when Wanjiku is angry there.
Angry.
Mm-hmm. You understand?
A hungry man
so
is
they
an angry
become
man.
very vulnerable to these politicians. As they go there, and someone is very angry, especially the youth, and I'm sorry to blame them, because most of the times they're the ones who are used by these politicians. They are given 100 bob, 200 bob, and without thinking that they need peace, they just do what the politicians
But how
do.
do we stop that? Because at the end of the day, like you mentioned, a human being needs to eat. And we have youth who are hungry, youth who have no jobs. And so this 200 shillings for them is a lot of money. So how do we get out of this situation where we can tell the youth, despite this situation that you are going through, this is not the easy way out. Take the right way. It's very difficult to convince youth that.
I think the best way is what you are doing here right now. Mm-hmm. Giving a lot of education to our youth, that this country belongs to them. We have a future. The election, remember, will come one day and go. But Kenya will always be there. Mm-hmm. Let me make a reference of our former Vice President, Professor Itoti. He said, Kenya is bigger than all of us. Mm. Our politicians agree to that. But when it comes to implementation on the ground, they become bigger than our country.
Right.
So one way that I should advocate to our Wananchi to follow is the media. The media should continue, and we are doing a very good job. And I congratulate you for that, especially the print media, the TV, by educating people that we don't need violence. Mm-hmm. We need to have a very peaceful election so that we can move forward with our development.
But I guess you'll agree with me that sometimes education is not all we need, because 2007 and 2008 should have been education enough by experience. All of us know what we went through. But every time we're getting to a political, election, we seem to be getting closer and closer to violence. What is it that does not seem to click to a point where now we cannot avoid it, surely? Because the education is there, media is doing what we can, but the 2007-2008 experience should have been education enough for most of us.
But Mike, you remember, it is the nature of a human being to forget so easily. That is the nature. And that's why I'm bringing in the issue of our population to be reminded. And there are very many key players here who can do that. The religious people. And let me call, it's a call. I think it's a call that I should make to Kenyans. Not that they don't know, but it's good to remind one another. The clergymen, the leaders of the church right now, they should be programming their services in the church, in the mosque, in the Hindus, on peace until we go over the board about what we are doing.
And those are great efforts, but what about levels of accountability? Because while we have the clergy championing for peace on one hand, we have civil society carrying out voter education on the grassroots level, we cannot still continue to expose this same electorate to that incitement by politicians. So there needs to be some sort of accountability that when a politician stands on a platform, he knows that if I say something that is likely to border on incitement, then the crowd will pick that up and I will likely lose my votes from that.
I think there's a mislink somewhere with our security institutions where when a politician does something wrong, nothing happens. And Wanjiku wants to see this guy who incites people, what is done to him. If there's nothing done to him, then Wanjiku will automatically do the opposite of that. Let me give you an example. When the so-called, is it the six? Those parliamentarians who brought problems, I went to Pangani myself.
Right.
I talked to the OSPD. I wanted to have an audience with them. I was allowed, but then the second thought again came. I might go there, they think maybe I'm sent by other people. The problem is the Wanjiku wants to see examples of those people or those leaders, whoever he is in this country. He's not big as Kenya. He's not bigger than Kenya. When he does something wrong, he does not follow the rule of law. The rule of law should follow him to the letter. Wanjiku is not seeing that. And where is this mislink? I don't know.
And now you can tell us, maybe through your experience as somebody who's been part of a disciplined force, normally you have a very delicate task, because on one side you have the politician, just like you've mentioned, on the other side you have Wanjiku, and both of them are looking at you as the disciplined forces, whether the police, the army, administration police, basically to be the ones who are going to do the right thing. What challenges have you gone through in trying to, have that delicate balance? You have one hungry person here who has been paid to do whatever. You have the politician who basically wants to get their point across. Maybe your experience.
Well, let me talk on basically the KDF, where I was for the last 34 years. And let me assure Kenyans, in the KDF, I don't want to be a representative of KDF, but it's something which does not basically touch on the insecurity of our country.
Right.
In the KDF, when I used to be there, we were not allowed to engage in politics. Politics was left to the politicians. Ours was two issues: to defend our country, our boundaries, and if we are called upon to assist the civil authority when there is a problem, then we come in. And I'm telling you, agree with me, that the servicemen and officers in the KDF do not engage in politics. We don't have these trivial issues of tribalism there. We know if you see an officer, he has his ranks here and Kenya. Our tribe in KDF is Kenya. The problem with tribalism and the other things and violence, it is not there.
Right.
But I also believe in other areas, like police force or other security agencies, is the same. But you cannot refute the fact that there are few individuals who are bad people.
Right, and I like that you brought up the issue of tribalism, because again, just going by history, Kenyan politics has largely been voting on the basis of ethnicity or the basis of where you come from. And it's the same situation that we're having in the country in this particular election. But how do we sort of stop politicians from tapping into ethnicity and turning it into negative ethnicity? Because ethnicity in itself isn't a bad thing.
I think, Michelle, that's a big problem, and that is where I always ask myself, what is happening with our politicians? Because they're the ones who are troubleshooters. They're the ones who bring problems here. Let me give you an example. I was working in Rwanda in 2004. I went to Rwanda. And the problem which was in Rwanda is basically tribalism. There are 3 tribes in Rwanda. There is Hutu, there is Tutsi, and there are these other 1,000 who stay in the mountains there.
Right.
But when the politicians there trained them over a period of a decade to downlook upon the Tutsis, who are the majority, and the Hutus, I think they were in the government. It brought up a lot of problem. It brought about the 1994 genocide, and that was very bad. Again, I had an opportunity under the United Nations to serve in Eritrea, UNIMI, for 1 year as a military observer. That country is like Western Province. It has a country which has, Eritrea is a country which has caved from the main Ethiopia, but they could not see eye to eye to each other. Why? Because of tribalism. Right now, as I'm talking, they have closed their boundary over the years, and they're neighbors. If you have to fly to Eritrea, you have to go all the way to Khartoum, then descend down to Eritrea because of tribalism.
Right.
So that's why you're saying this is a very important issue, and every Kenyan, wherever he is, he should not embrace tribalism.
All right.
Let me make a note on tribalism, because it's very important. It is interconnected with peace. I come from Tharaka Nithi County. You are a Kikuyu. You are a Kikuyu, maybe, I presume. Others are other tribes. If I fall down today out of heart attack or asthma, Michelle, tell me frankly, will you ask for Tharaka to come and take me to the hospital?
Absolutely not.
What dimension is tribalism? How tall it is? What is the smell of? Kenyans, believe me or not, Michelle, do not embrace tribalism. It is the leaders who teach us. If you go to the streets, in the matatus, in the restaurants, you don't hear them saying you are Kikuyu or what. They might literally be saying it, but when they are incited by these politicians, it becomes an issue.
Right.
And it's very dangerous, and we are calling upon Kenyans to avoid tribalism at all costs.
All right, thank you so much. Major retired Mwithi Peter Sami here on Morning Express. He's a peace ambassador championing a message of peace